Hey guys, you are listening to Gentlemanly. I'm Troy Francis, the author of 11 books and mentor to thousands of men all across the globe, from London to Warsaw to Bogota and back again. This podcast isn't about pickup, it's about presence. It's about seduction, philosophy, style, and the mythic art of remaining dangerous long after most men fail. Let's get into it. So, this is episode 4, and indeed the title is Most Men Fade. Here's why I won't. So I wanted to share some observations on this. So this obviously is about aging, it's about getting older. Would you believe it? I'm 51 years young. I can't really believe it myself. I thought I'd have croaked it long before this, but no, for some reason. My maker has allowed me to remain on this planet for the time being at least. Possibly to spread this this good message amongst you guys. So here we are. But obviously that means I've lived all through my 30s and all through my 40s as well. I recognise that some of you listening to this or watching this are probably in those age groups. This is broadly aimed at guys who are in their 30s plus, sort of 35 plus. But obviously if you're younger, you're absolutely welcome, because there's going to be actionable information here for you as well. But, you know, the broad sort of idea for this is for guys who are getting a little bit older, or not older, but, you know, getting a little bit more mature. And the reality is that out there in the mainstream, I'm looking out the window now. Actually, that looks like quite a young couple, so it's not a very good example. But, I mean, when you go out and about, you see guys who are sort of over the age of 30 or 40, and they often will look pretty old, you know? They'll be out of shape, the hair's greying, the pot belly is growing, the fashion is zero, there's a look of defeatism in their eyes. They seem to be existing rather than living, and it's just not really... They just lack the joie de vivre that they had perhaps when they were younger. And that's obviously something that we all want to avoid, not just from a dating perspective. I mean, it plays a huge role in dating, actually, because guys will often ask me, well, you know, what about dating younger women, and what do you say to a woman when she asks your age, and all that kind of stuff, and we can get into that. But, you know, one of the key things is not looking like her dad, basically, or acting like her dad. I mean, if you do that, then you're stuffed, and not in a good way. So that's the first thing. But yeah, I mean, you know, in terms of men who are still over the age of 35 to 40, I mean, it's interesting because I was talking to my girlfriend about this the other day, and some people just age naturally anyway. They seem older than their years. She was talking about a colleague of hers, and he's like 28, and she said, you know, he seems like he's at least 35 just from his demeanour and what he wears and everything else. So, you know, there are some very obvious sort of superficial things that you can do to avoid seeming too old too quickly, and you know, one of them is what you wear and how you style it. And I'm not saying, you know, you want to dress as though you're a teenager. I'm not saying, you know, spike your hair and start wearing, like, you know, studded boots and leather trousers and stuff like this. But at the same time, you don't necessarily want to be wearing a tweed jacket and with elbow patches and stuff when you are in your late 20s, which a colleague of mine, actually became a good friend of mine, really great guy, but, you know, he was like 26, 27, 28 when he joined the company I was working at, and he already looked 40, you know. So, and not even facially. It wasn't that his skin looked old or that his eyes had lost their luster or any of that stuff, or he was losing his hair, but he just looked older because of the way he presented himself. So the way you present yourself is super important. Now, I know I probably can't talk now because the jacket I'm wearing is kind of, well, I'm not sure the exact... I forget the exact material of this, but it's almost like a tweedish kind of a thing. I mean, this is probably slightly older than I might normally dress, but nevertheless, I am in my 50s, so you know, I can kind of get away with it, and I can kind of pull this sort of thing off. It's also, the colour is quite good, the fit is good, and everything else. But you don't want to look like somebody's dad. At the same time, you don't want to look like you're trying too hard and you're looking too young either. I mean, I was in a meeting recently with a bunch of dudes, and some of them were older guys, you know, in their late 50s or 60s, and everyone there except for me was wearing just hoodies and tracky pants and trainers, and I was just a bit like what the fuck? Like, you know, you're 60 and you're wearing a hoodie. I mean, it just, to me, it just looks very immature. It looks like you're trying to be 15 or something like that. I do have a couple of hoodies actually, but I don't really like wearing them. Even at my age, even now. Obviously I'll wear t-shirts. I don't really wear jeans anymore. Not a big fan of jeans. I do have some sweatpants, but again, it's more daytime or for running errands or for actually going to the gym. You know, if I go out, and that includes to like a bar or a restaurant or anything really, I like to dress up a bit, you know? And I like to be slightly better dressed than the average person who is there. We're going to be doing more episodes on style as we go forward and fashion and stuff, so I'm not going to, you know, go into huge detail now, but just suffice to say that the way you dress is important, and you've got to strike that balance between not looking like an old buffoon, but at the same time not looking like you're trying too hard and you're trying to be, you know, 15 and wearing sort of, I don't know, like band t-shirts and things like that. You know, the reality is that with age comes bodily and hormonal changes, right? I mean, our testosterone drops, okay? And with that, we see loss of edge, a loss of hunger for sexual or romantic success, but also success in other areas. And, you know, sexual changes, right? You know, you're less horny, you've got less libido, you are less inclined to go out and try to meet people. Now, in a way, for me, that's been a blessing, because that has actually happened for me. I think it was probably... It was a few years ago, I suppose. I mean, I lasted well into my, certainly all through my 30s, I was, you know, very, very libidinous, or licentious, or whatever the word is, or you could use both. And then into my 40s as well, and I suppose it was mid to late 40s, things just started to slow down, just naturally started to slow down. And then, you know, I was with this girlfriend for a few years, and then we split. And after we split, my libido for a while, it just completely fell through the floor. I mean, I was still teaching this stuff. I was still making videos. I was going on trips with James and stuff. And, you know, it wasn't that I was completely abstinent, but my drive, my desire to do it, that is to say, to go and talk to people and try to create connections and so on, had reduced significantly, almost to the point of flatlining, really. Now, a couple of things then changed that. One of the things was actually just going and doing it. And as James Tusk often says, action creates passion. So we think, I've got to be passionate about this thing, you know, I've got to be passionate about going out and meeting girls before we do it. But actually, if you just take the action and go out and start talking to people, then you will find that the passion will grow as you do the actions. And I found that to be the case myself, because when we went to Russia, for example, I mean, I wasn't massively feeling it, you know, I mean, I wanted to go just for the sake of the trip, just to see what it was like to go to that country, but I wasn't, you know, hugely motivated by trying to date or anything like that. But because I was with James and we had a student and we were doing some filming, things like that, I got pushed into a few interactions, and yeah, you know, it did start to kickstart the old the motors again. Okay, so sometimes just by doing the action, you get that sense of the passion back. Okay. The other thing, of course, to look at is health in all its many aspects. You know, are you going to the gym? Are you in reasonable shape? Are you eating properly? What's your weight like? What's your waistline like? BMI, all of that stuff. And ultimately, possibly looking at bloods and looking at testosterone. Now, that's not to say you have to go onto TRT or anything like that, but it's certainly worth having a look, because over the years, your testosterone will naturally decline. And that does have an effect on the way that you operate in the world. It just does, you know? And it's not just about getting jacked in the gym, which I always used to think, because that's, you know, people tend to, you know, TRT or testosterone, and it's all about, yeah, man, you know, going to look like Arnie, or I'm going to look like whoever. And actually, that's a part of it, but it's not necessarily even the main part, because the main part is sort of what it does to you mentally, really. I mean, your alertness, your drive, your competitiveness, your desire to get things done, your motivation, you know, all of these things are really affected by your hormones. And so if your hormones are out of whack, which they may well be if you're over 30, you know, even if you're in your early 30s, they may well be out of whack, then that could be causing you problems. So it's worth having a look at least. And as I say, it's not saying, okay, right, jump on TRT if you don't want to. That's obviously a personal decision. But it's certainly something that's worth monitoring. And in the UK, we have a company called Medichecks, which I've done a number of blood panels with. They've been very good. The one that we recommend is I forget the exact name, but it's basically like the full sports panel, I think it's called, or full blood panel. It costs about £200, and it tests everything. So it tests testosterone, free testosterone, but also things like, you know, thyroid issues and all kinds of different things, because all of these things, and again, as you can tell, I'm no scientist, so I can't really articulate this fully, but all of these things link together. So it's not just, oh, my testosterone looks okay according to the NHS, so good to go. Because for a start, they will be measuring your testosterone against others in your cohort, that is to say, other people who are your age. And really, you know, we want to be outperforming people of our own age. We don't just want to be average in our own age group. And secondly, other things can affect it, like I think it's called the sex binding hormone or agent or whatever. Even if your free testosterone is quite high, that can affect it, and it can make the free testosterone not act as effectively as it would have done anyway. So, you know, there's things to think about. There's things I certainly didn't know about. So that's definitely worth doing. But short of that, obviously doing the exercise, going out doing the exercise, trying to get enough sleep. I mean, if you just Google testosterone, things to do to naturally increase testosterone, probably eating red meats, getting to sleep, getting some vitamin D, sunshine, and maybe taking supplements. There's a bunch of things you can do just to try to ensure that side of things is on point, along with dressing the part. So you've got to dress age appropriately, but sharply, if that makes sense. So thinking about that, very, very important. I've talked here about the role of conformity, comfort, and distraction. I mean, part of this, of course, depends on what your life situation is. I mean, if you've got married or not. And marriage and long-term coupledom and living together obviously is great, or can be great, but it also puts you into a situation of domestication, right? Which is, some would argue, antithetical to being the masculine, you know, the free, the Lone Ranger sort of masculine sort of guy. So if you are in that situation, then you need to make an extra effort to keep up your own interests and keep up your own hobbies. Like maybe it's just as simple as, you know, just going out for runs every week, or doing a Tough Mudder, or, you know, making sure that your gym routine's on point, or whatever. Just taking time for yourself, or doing something competitive, maybe doing a competitive sport or a martial art or something, just to ensure that you're servicing that side of yourself. Because domestication is fine, and look, I mean, in many ways, domestication is a really lovely thing. Like, I think we all want to feel that sense of being nurtured. I think we all want to feel that sense of safety and everything like that. So I'm not going to sit here and decry it. But at the same time, if we're talking about men fading out, domestication does have a nasty habit of making that happen, unless you hold on to whatever it is that, you know, made you that vital kind of in inverted commas, alpha character that your wife or your partner first fell in love with, right? Because if you let that go, then not only are you letting yourself down, but you're kind of letting her down a bit as well, because she's like, well, hang on a minute, I signed up for this guy because he had these qualities, and now all he does is sit around and watch Coronation Street or, you know, do the crossword or whatever it is. So do not, what's the Dylan Thomas line? Do not fade gently into that deep, I've butchered it, haven't I? You know what I'm saying. You know, don't just allow yourself to the slow fade out, right? You've got to go down fighting. I mean, my uncle, who's now in his 70s, was exercising, or has been exercising all of his life, all through his 60s, into his 70s, going skiing several times a year, going to après ski parties, extremely active, in really, really good shape, you know, hiking, running, mountain climbing, yoga, skiing, just all kinds of stuff, right? Age is a self-limiting belief, to an extent. I mean, obviously, maybe you'll get some kind of health issue that needs to be dealt with, but in general, I think it's a little bit of an illusion to say, oh, well, you know, I've reached a certain age, so that's it, game over. I don't really believe that to be the case. I think you can carry on going, and you can still, you know, you can keep yourself in very good shape until a very advanced age, and I've certainly seen guys who have done that. Comfort, you know, comfort is a drug, right? We all love comfort, and you will have heard the old expression that the things that are really valuable in life happen outside of our comfort zone. And most of us don't want to leave our comfort zone. Most of us are quite happy just to sit in our comfort zone and fester, really. And if that's, you know, you got the wife, you got the kids, you got the TV, you can watch the football on a Saturday, you can drink a few beers, you're happy with your lot, great. But are you really fulfilling your potential as a human being on this planet? Probably not. So is there a way that you can change things up just a little bit? I'm not saying upset the apple cart. I'm not saying, you know, leave your wife or anything like that. But, you know, there should be an agreement between you and her that you have your own interests and you have your own goals and things that you're working towards. Now, you could do some of this stuff together. You could go hiking together, right? You could go on a hiking weekend. You could go and climb a mountain together. There's stuff you can do. All right, but you need to remain active and not get sucked into that comfort trap. This is assuming you're married and you're not looking to, you know, you're not looking to get out of that relationship, and you're not looking to, you know, find somebody else or anything like that. Just assuming you're in a place where you want to be. Alternatively, there are guys who are middle-aged, but they are bachelors either because they divorced or because they never got married in the first place. Tends mainly to be the latter, you know, people who were divorced. I know several of them myself. And I've kind of experienced this a little bit when I was single. I think you can reach an age where you start to get set in your ways. I think age makes us much more set in our ways. We become creatures of habit. There are certain things that we like. You know, we like a certain type of routine. We like to, you know, be in bed at a certain time. We've got certain shows we watch, or things we listen to on podcasts or the radio or whatever. And, you know, we get very happy with that. And that's great. Like, the way that I've personally done this over the past few years is that I've travelled quite a lot with Tusk and also alone. And I've been to some really interesting places. I've been to places that I'd never been to before, you know, Rio, Moldova, Albania, Dubai in the last year or so, all places I'd never been to before that, Colombia, Russia, Ukraine, lots of different places, and no doubt more places will be added to the list. So I've done some pretty cool stuff, but I've also sort of had the creature comforts with me. So I always listen to, you know, like a London-based radio station when I'm away. It keeps you up to date with what's happening at home. Obviously, I'm in touch with people at home via WhatsApp and so on and so forth. So you can kind of get a bit of the best of both worlds. You can be a creature of habit, but you can be a creature of habit while you're being a bit nomadic as well. And you're having new experiences, but you've still got those anchors, those things that you can cling on to. And I don't think, personally, there's anything really wrong with that. Because for me, um, I have always quite liked to have a toehold in London, which is my home, where I'm from and where a lot of my friends are, and, support network and everything like that. But I do also spend quite a lot of time outside of town, outside of the country. And I think having the best of both worlds is quite good for me, right? I mean, not for everyone. James Tusk travels the whole time, you know? He's completely nomadic. And in some ways, I really admire that. And I kind of feel like he's been, they say don't be half a gangster. I feel like I've been half a gangster and he's been the full Monty, he's been the full gangster. And actually really done it and really taken it further than probably anybody else I know, really. But so what? I mean, everyone's got their own path. Everyone makes their own choices. I think as long as you're not atrophying, and a lot of guys do, and the other thing is as well, I mean, look, let's be honest. I mean, I live in London, right, which is one of the biggest, not the biggest cities in the world, but it's a big metropolitan city. There's a lot of stuff going on. Even if I was just here 24/7 and I never travelled anywhere, I could still have a really interesting, varied, exciting life. If you're living it, and look, no shade intended here, but I find it very hard to get my head around people who just live in a small town and they never leave for their entire lives. I mean, if you're living that kind of lifestyle, and you want to up level your date, up your dating life, and you're getting a bit bored and a bit dissatisfied with things, I mean, you've got to fucking move, or at least you've got to find ways to travel and get the hell out of there from time to time, because that really is a comfort zone, and nothing is going to happen. Nothing is going to happen in one of those places, I mean, you are screwed. I mean, people come to us and they're like, oh yeah, I live in this town with 3,000 people. I want to get really good at day game. What do I do? And it's like, well, I don't know, move. I mean, there isn't really an easy answer to that issue. And when you think about people who have gone on to live a lifestyle that others would covet, would envy, some, people on social media, maybe some celebrities and so on and so forth, they have deliberately designed their lives in such a way as to enable that, right? They didn't just sit there in Tavistock and hope things improved. I mean, they got the hell out of there, right? And they changed and they did something different. And that's what you need to do. But again, there needs to be a strong why. And the problem is that as we get older, our nerve and our determination and our balls shrink, to be frank. I mean, and again, this comes back to the testosterone piece. If you're firing on all cylinders, it's likely you're going to feel more drive to go out there and get the things that you want and do the things you want to do. If you're not firing on all cylinders, well, the evening paper and watching Strictly Come Dancing is probably going to be enough for you, which is fine. But if you're watching this and you're watching self-improvement stuff, that signals to me that you're not entirely happy with where you are, okay? Because otherwise, why would you bother watching this stuff, right? There'd be no point. So if you're not entirely happy with where you want to be, you need to make changes. And how to make changes, as I say, in my opinion, the first thing is to have a strong why. But you get a strong why through strong desire. And strong desire comes through vitality. It comes through the lifeblood that's rushing through your veins. And if that's slowly dissipating because you're getting older or your testosterone is low, then you've got a problem. But luckily, it's not a problem that can't be addressed, okay? But you need to identify it first, in my opinion. For me personally, and look, I mean, I'm in a unique position really, because I do have a girlfriend who I don't live with entirely, but I do spend a lot of time with, okay? But I also do travel a lot, and I do this fairly unconventional, sometimes quite exciting job. So I was just in Rio, back in London now. Probably got some more travel coming up quite soon, travel with her as well. So I've sort of got the best of both worlds. Prior to my girlfriend, I was traveling the world for about 3 years without being in a serious committed relationship, and I had a lot of freedom and a lot of free time and everything else, and that had its benefits as well. I mean, everything has its benefits and its drawbacks, right? Nothing is nothing. There's always going to be compromise, whatever you choose to do. But I suppose the reason that I'm this age and I'm not married and I haven't yet, not married yet, and I haven't settled down in that manner yet, and I stress yet, is because I was looking for something different, and I found it very hard to get sort of contained in that box. I mean, it wasn't that there weren't opportunities, because there were. I mean, obviously there absolutely were, but I chose either to sabotage those relationships or to remove myself from them because I wanted something else, And again, it's like, why did I do that? I mean, we could sit here for hours and I could psychoanalyze myself on camera. I'm not going to do that, but it comes down to drive. It comes down to what you want, right? And that why. And for me, I think there was a why that was strong enough, that was connected with wanting to see a bit more of the world and just wanting to taste a bit more of the world. Tom Torrera used to talk about licking the lid of life. I think I wanted to lick the lid of life just a little bit more. Now I'm 50. Maybe things change. Things change. You do slow down. Your priorities do change, right? But if you're in your 30s and you're watching this, or even your 40s or early 40s, I mean, come on, man. What are you doing, right? If you're sitting around in Lowestoft thinking, oh, shit, wouldn't it be great if I could go out and, date some supermodels, then you're going to have to make some serious changes. But that can only come from you. Now, I can help you with it. You can email me, troy@realtroyfrancis.com, and explain your situation and tell me what's happening, and, we can go from there. But in the end, it's got to come down to you wanting it badly enough to make the big changes that are necessary in order not to fade into that. Is it fade into that good night? I forget the Dylan Thomas line exactly, but you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, you have to find a why. And if the why isn't present, you have to find out, or you have to establish the reason that why isn't present, and then you have to address that, okay? It's all doable. It's all doable. But the first step lies with you, because you've got to reach out. If you need help, you've got to reach out. You've got to reach out to me, or you've got to reach out to somebody else. Or at least you've got to do some soul-searching on your own and figure out, what is it that I actually want? Why am I not getting there? And what are the steps that I would need to take in order to get there, and work it backwards, okay? And then start actioning that. It really helps if you've got a mentor. Really helps if you've got someone on your team. I'm here to do that job. That's what I do with, a whole bunch of clients that I work with all over the world. So if that's something you want to discuss, then get in touch. But, otherwise, there is this risk that you start to fade out. And it's a pretty sad state of affairs, really, unless that's what you want, and only you can decide what you want. But I think a lot of us, especially if we're watching this kind of content, especially if we're interested in self-improvement, we want something more, and we will regret it if we don't get it, or if we don't at least try to get it, okay? And I'm not just talking about dating here, I'm talking about the whole caboodle, life experience. So, food for thought, something to chew on. Hope you enjoyed the episode, and I'll see you guys again very soon.